What's up guys, Joey Salads here, and today we're going to be doing the phone destroying prank.
Get out of him. Leave Lance alone.
Shut up, you
That ain't on the news. You think you know me, but that ain't on the news.
And no, I'm not from Compton. England is my city, and if it weren't for Team 10, then the US would be
Hey bro, with the same bully flow. Bully at school, now you bullying your bro.
little brother Jakey trying to roast me. What?
This episode of Content Cop, we're going to be looking at Jinx Reloaded. I mean, Reload. It would make too much sense if it was called Jinx Reloaded. Let's start things off with an education. How to get YouTube famous.
Taking a nice nap right now. Kind of excited to see how he's gonna act.
Oh my god.
When he gets out.
I can't wait to see what Grayson's gonna say or do. It's gonna be hilarious. Alright.
Hi everyone, it's me again, and Squish Gang is present, and today we are going to be doing a very exciting video. We are doing 2016-2017 YouTube Part 2. Like I didn't pain myself enough the first time to make it. First, of course, housekeeping, and this video is in partnership with Rose Forever New York, so we'll get into that shortly. First, some little housekeeping. I launched a Patreon, tag down below. I have multiple tiers for that. You can read when you click the link, or if you click the link, sorry. I have an Amazon wish list, which is private as the launch day of this video, but I will reopen soon depending on when you watch this, just because I'm moving at the end of next week. Like, comment, subscribe, please. These videos take me a lot of work. I'm already 3 hours deep just from scripting. So, period. Love that. And that's scripting after having like gathered things for weeks at this point. I'm gonna try for the channel to do one like big video a month like this. We'll see how that goes when I have the summer semester and everything for grad school, but that's kind of like the current vibe. The background's not gonna look like this for much longer. I'm moving very, very soon. Let's get into the partnership with Rose Forever New York. So these are the roses. They come in a little box. I actually do have a code with them as well, which is Mika20, which will save you 20% off. These are also a really cute gift for Mother's Day and to kind of get, you know, family members and things like that. I got mine in like a cute little Tiffany blue. And they smell good too, and they're preserved with natural oils. The bouquets themselves are handcrafted by professional florists and artisans. And you can keep these for almost or upwards of an entire year, depending obviously on like how well you take care of these things. But if you just kind of keep them open, keep them in the little box, you'll be good to go. They have bouquets of 9 all the way up to 49, and they suede box. They come in like a marble box or a kind of black cardboard. I got mine in the velvet, which is another material that they use, and I got mine shipped to Canada, and it arrived quickly and securely, entirely in one piece with tons of like foam and stuff around it to preserve it. And these are a great gift in time for Mother's Day. I'm actually thinking of getting one for my mom because I was telling her about this and she was really excited about the idea. And they're just fantastic little flowers just for a little gift that if you want to kind of get that. And I'm really grateful for partnering with them for this video because projects like this are long and hard to do. So at times like this, it is really nice to be able to kind of have a little bit more gusto to getting the videos done and to be able to promote something that I actually really enjoy. And when I move, I'll have this in my videos as well in the background. That's my partnership with Rose Forever New York, and let's get into the parts of the video. All right, besties, so that we have a lot of parts of the video. We actually have 4 this time because this is a long one, and also because this is a part 2. I have a whole section dedicated to corrections, because in my last video, I did mention that I was definitely going to mess it up somewhere, which I did, of course, love that for me, because I wasn't even active online, period, at this time, so it was kind of not the easiest way to figure out what was going on. And a lot of this, like I said, tons of deleted videos, even re-uploads were few and far in between for things I was looking for sometimes, so that is the reason why that is like that. So parts of the video, part 1, corrections and things I've learned. If there was ever a point where I was like, I don't know what happened with this, I do correct it there as well. Part 2, we have prank YouTubers. We're talking the likes of like Joey Salads, Lance Stewart, like that brand, FouseyTube. as well. Part 3, we have YouTuber diss tracks. As you know, I'll tag down below as well. I just made a video on rice gum, so that was kind of a little bit of the beginning of research for this video in regards to the diss track section, and I did not realize how iconic in the diss track game this man was until I looked back at it a little bit more. And part 4, we have, like, reaction channels, but we're not talking, like, Foodie Beauty, Amberlynn Reed reaction channels or, you know, anything creative. We're talking, like, the reaction channels that like Jinx Reload or like that guy on TikTok who just like reads memes and then goes, oh, I agree. Like we're talking like that brand of reaction content. This video will be structured similarly to the first one. It will be chaptered and laid out and everything. And any affiliate links, codes, anything will be in the description and clearly marked, as well as books I use. And the Amazon wishlist also contains books I recommend that people have not bought for me yet. And then if there's any other books that you're asking about, any questions about rhetoric or readings, I will answer them in the comments. I respond to all of the comments as long as this video doesn't like randomly get 100,000 views, which I doubt. So as long as like nothing goes crazy, I'll respond to all the comments, as I did in the last one if you wanted to verify my sources here.
What we do here is go back.
Part 1 is corrections. First thing I want to correct is in the video I said I had no idea what happened to Jay Versace when I was talking about the Vine invasion of 2016-2017 Vine invasion. I had to mention that when I looked at Jay Versace's channel that a bunch of the stuff was gone. Like there was nothing left except for the reacting to my old Vines, the video where he meets Shaquille O'Neal, and then another kind of trailer looking video that was quite short. Turns out Jay Versace is a very successful music producer, and recently in the 2022 Grammys actually won a Grammy for his work on Tyler the Creator's album Call Me If You Get Lost. So it's like a really good, like a piece of really good news from one of these videos, which I thought was not really going to be something that happened, to be honest. And I got that in my comments too, apparently, that Jay Versace also worked with like SZA and stuff, which is really cool. So, and there was like an article that I found talking about like how Jay Versace like bounced around a lot, and people were describing that in a way that was like kind of seemingly at a disrespectful era, which I thought was super bizarre. Yeah, they're just living their best life. So like, I love that. I love that for them because, you know, with Viners, right, if they don't do YouTube, a lot of them who don't do YouTube anymore, I always wonder kind of what they're doing because, you know, YouTube's not for everybody. I'm playing with my hair a lot, I apologize. But yeah, YouTube's not for everybody, you know, even just like the editing process. If you can't afford an editor, then it's hours and hours of your own time. That's after you've actually learned how to edit too, like how to use the softwares and stuff like that and being able to balance everything, because it is a one-man show and some people don't like that. Some people don't like to manage themselves or don't like to be the ones in charge of a career, and things like Vine, where it was just 7-second videos, is a very different landscape than long-form content. Especially if you're doing super long-form content like this, which, you know, we love that. It's always a good time to talk for hours and hours. Next correction, in my section about everybody versus Keemstar, I talked about Leafy is here and the feud between Keemstar and Leafy. I talked about how Keemstar had accused Leafy of subbotting his channel with seemingly unfound evidence from this like one kind of random commentary video by a small channel that had said that they had found traces of Leafy subbotting. While this is still true, technically, that wasn't the source of Leafy's feud with Keemstar. It was about this kind of esports team style thing that Keemstar wanted Leafy's here and Grade A Undereye to invest in, and they did not want to invest in it, so Keemstar proceeded to go and like run around and talk smack about them relentlessly. And that was like one of the first instances. And then the subbotting thing was an issue that came after, but then there kind of became this like pretty consistent like push and pull between Leafy and Keemstar over time, and they're friends now. Well, as of whatever, last year before Leafy's channel got deleted, at least. They even made like this like weird merch together, which like Keemstar also did with a couple of other people, if I remember correctly. And I cannot remember what it's called, because I forgot to write it, because I just remember that now. I'll put a picture of it, though, here. And then my final correction, at least as I'm aware of, I did look through the comments before I made this, too, when I was scripting, so I think I got everything that was, like, either blatantly incorrect or missing a piece of something. I talked about how MAC Cosmetics was not one to collab with influencers and avoided it. While it's still somewhat true to that sentiment, because the influencer collaborations, especially at the time, were few and far in between, I somehow forgot to mention the Patrick Star X MAC collection, which I've literally, like, so in Canada, you don't have TJ Maxx, you have what's called Winners. It's exactly the same thing. Winners, Marshall, TJ Maxx are all under the same, like, TJX umbrella. Regardless, I've actually seen the MAC Patrick Star stuff at Winners, and I've like mentioned to my boyfriend that was like a huge deal and a huge collaboration. Like I just like literally completely forgot at the time of like both scripting, filming, and editing, which is weird. Usually stuff doesn't like slip me like 3 times. But alas, I forgot about the MAC Patrick Star collection somehow, even though that's like arguably one of the more iconic MAC collections, especially in recent history. I think I would say like Patrick Star, the like Rihanna collaboration, the Madonna one, and like Viva Glam. I think there was like a Nicki Minaj Viva Glam too, but regardless, that's like one of the like super iconic MAC collections, and people who weren't even into MAC or not necessarily even into Patrick Star were buying these products, and this was like a huge deal at the time. So for some reason, slipped my mind. Don't know how. I apologize. We will push forward, besties. Next one. Part 2, we're gonna get into YouTubers, which is a very interesting phenomenon. So I talked about this, like, I mentioned this earlier too. I did not have internet until 2017 and this was like right coming at the tail end of these types of things. I feel like YouTube kind of shifted in 2018 to more like Reddit related things, and we're talking about like cringe commentary and stuff like that. So then 2017 was the prank YouTuber kind of decline. This is due to several things, including like the adpocalypse and different shapes and algorithms and websites like YouTube and Facebook, new policies that were pushed forward, etc. So there was a lot of different reasons why this kind of fizzled out. I had no idea how bad it was. What do you mean there was a Trump car prank? Who's prank invasion? I feel like I can be all of your guys' like boomer parents, you know, who are like, I have no idea what you're talking about anything. I said to somebody, it was either in my comment section or on Twitter or something, I said, who's how to basic? Apparently that was the wrong answer. That was the wrong answer. People, like, same thing is like, I don't really know anything about Ray William Johnson, who I couldn't figure out how to fit in here because I don't even understand the type of content they were making and what that falls under. You know, as far as like how I categorize things. But yeah, regardless, who's Joey Salads? Made car pranks? So the other thing is too, is so many of the pranks were like racist or super sexist or just outwardly violent. So I don't know how to, I took like the most mundane one for the clips. And if you're wondering why all of them are the same like video, it's because it's the only one I could find that I was like, this one's kind of okay if I can like move around certain things, and I'll explain why that is further down into the video. I do want to credit Sunny V2's video of the fall of the prank YouTuber as my sourcing for this one, and I'll link that video down below, because again, when you didn't live through it, you kind of need to find like videos that can at least like lay out who everybody is, and then from there I can kind of navigate who's who and different things like that. There's somebody else that I remember is important, and I talked about him in my Rice Gum video. Sam Pepper, who I forgot to even look into that because while I was doing this, who is that? Comment down below who Sam Pepper. Comment down below who Sam Pepper is, and I'll know that you've gotten at least a few minutes into the video. But also because like educate me, this is fun, and then I can make a part 3 too, kind of gather everything. Because like once I've scripted, girl, there's no going back. Like I don't have time. I don't have time to go back. So in my list. This is obviously like another thing is when you're thinking like 2016 like crazy YouTube culture, I feel like you're thinking 3 things. You're thinking diss tracks, you're thinking pranks, and you're thinking commentary. And this would make sense too, because that would make a lot of the majority of like the super popular content, like we're talking like videos 50 million plus views, 30 million plus views, are either cringe reacts to diss tracks, reactions to like commentary, people reacting to other people's content who they like think that they're, you know, they're holier than thou, then I guess for lack of a better term. And then you also have your outrage, the forced outrage to just try to get like the clout chasing, like the unimaginable ends that people were going to for clout chasing. So I feel like pranks are in that kind of fall into multiple categories there, where you have kind of commentary pulling them and then the outrage. Not as much obviously like diss tracks, but even then like FouseyTube's making music, so it's like, you know, you gotta dip in your toe and everything here. So here are the list of YouTubers I have. Prank channels that were big. I have Vitaly, Joey Salads, FouseyTube, Lance Stewart, Prank Invasion. That's like who I have in my little list. Pranking became popular like far before this time. Apparently like as early as like 2010 in some cases, and there was a lot of early YouTube videos, like we're kind of talking like America's Funniest Home Video style videos where it's, you know, shot on like a camcorder or a really bad camera quality, and it's just like a parent putting one of their kids' things in a weird place, and then it's like, whoa, craziness, you know. nothing above anybody's means. But once YouTube got monetized, and then as well as things like Facebook video became prevalent, people kind of starting to want to create the most extravagant content. And this was before things like clickbaiting were regulated. So then not only did you have these like extravagant content, you would also sometimes have super boring content that kind of had nothing, that would put like the piece of substance at the end. So there would only be like 2 minutes of actual content, but you got all of this watch time. People also weren't chaptering, and people weren't, because I chaptered the videos, right? So if you don't care about a certain section, I'll lose that watch time, but I don't care about Clout that much, so you can watch what you want. That's why there's sections like that. But these things didn't exist at the time. And things also became popular on Vine, and then you could have 6-second kind of super slapstick comedy. I talked about this in my first video as well, that a lot of Vine was like this very like slapstick comedy, and a lot of that slapstick comedy came in the form of like pranks. We're talking like putting cellophane on across a door frame, and then you walk into it, stuff like that. Why? Okay, I didn't watch H3 Productions videos. I watched the podcast kind of like, I say I got into the podcast in like 2019, and then I'll like watch because I like the crew sometimes, and that's like, but I was never into the like H3 Productions, edgelord kind of thing. Why? I'm gonna have like flashbacks. Every time I'm like 2016 thing, H3 Productions, I get autoplay when I'm researching. So like if I'm writing a script and I pull like say like Sunny V2's video, or there's another video I pull later down the line, it will essentially like autoplay at some point H3 Production. I was talking about this with a friend of mine. There's like the Wikipedia challenge where you click on different things, and apparently you'll always end a philosophy at some point. I feel like with YouTube from 2016 to 2018, you will end up at H3 Productions at some point. So what ended up happening was you had what's called the commentary promotion cycle. And Sunny V2's video has an interview with Joey Salads where Joey Salads describes how this works. So what had happened was H3 Productions started doing reviews of prank channels, people like Prank Invasion, Lance Stewart, etc., and would pick like the most outrageous pranks, and would kind of also lift the mask on if the fact that they were real or not. Because at this point, YouTube was still, monetization was not, you know, super long. It hadn't existed for that long. There was not many rules or regulations around it. There was a lot of this sense of that YouTube was an authentic platform, and you could essentially take everything as is without having to kind of review things on a grain of salt. This obviously changed, and a big contributor to this change was the prank channels. So essentially, Ethan and Ela Klein, what they did with their platform was they lifted the mask of like what's fake content and what's real content. Now, you could hindsight 2020 this and just be like, well, obviously it was fake. But at the time, because of the genuine nature of the platform, people were not shaped into the kind of thinking a little bit more critically in this way. This was something that not a lot of people were aware of. Now, with that, you have people trying to chase the clout of the H3 Productions channel, because they were getting anywhere from 3 to 10 million views a video at least on average, and then from there you would be able to boost your videos and get more revenue that way. Because this is also a lot of this was prior to the adpocalypse, where AdSense was at least double what it is now for the most part. So what ended up happening as a result of this is you got a cycle of extravagance that was being perpetuated by Ethan Klein and Ela Klein as well. Because what would happen is they were like, okay, you need to be able to get cringe enough to end up on H3 Productions. But it's interesting because at the same time, you wanted to not be so cringe that you ended up as a content cop. So there was a very tight balance there. You wanted to not be dragged for 40 minutes by Ian, but you wanted to be able to be called cringe by Ethan Klein. That was like your balancing act at the time. So when you looked at the themes of these videos, you typically had the following. They fell under one of these categories. You had blatant objectification of women videos. You had pranks where you scare your significant other, which could also fall into the previous category as well. Inciting or pretending violence was incited upon you, or abducting children, or racially charged or motivated. Which, did not know that. because when I was thinking 2016 like content before this 2016 prank content, I was thinking like Lance Stewart's like I am possessed for real video, not Trump car, or putting my car. I don't even want to say it actually. So never mind. I won't. All the thumbnails, like the stuff I'm talking about, it's just whoa. It was like so beyond my scope of comprehension. So that was sick. Did not expect that at all. So, it is what it is, I suppose. And I noticed too that they would hedge their own arguments or hedge their own kind of lack of seriousness towards things, because when it was the type of content that could be seen as something that was more controversial, you actually had like the word social experiment tied to it, which I feel like because experiment has a bit more of a positive connotation to it as opposed to the word prank, because prank means that there's like no seriousness, everything's a joke or perhaps a mockery of a certain thing, while the term social experiment might kind of trigger different notions of things, such as like, you know, oh, they want to see how people react, and then they can like further this, like, or get rid of a stigma of some sort. So there's different connotations to terms. Like, obviously now the term social experiment on YouTube is just that people know that it's just prank, but at the time that could have just adjusted or skewed people's viewpoints on these types of topics. Also, like, I feel like social experiment was the way that they kind of coped with the fact that they were just bothering strangers, and then they could like make it okay that they were bothering strangers in the way that they were, as in because experiment often too is connotated with science, which science to a lot of people is a contribution to the greater good. For some people it's not, and some people have a very skewed sense and viewpoint of science, and that's none of my business at this point. That's not what this video is about. But typically experimentation is connected to science and connected thus to like the greater good as a concept. But then they would just kind of use the term social experiments to make it like not bad that they were bothering people. So sometimes they were bothering the public, and that was where the huge shift came, was when the pranks went from like messing with your girlfriend to like just doing like stuff in the street.
Oh, bro, like you're
You!
Hey, bro, what are you doing?
Yo, what are you... Yo, chill! What the... Yo, what are you doing? You like a f***ing spider.
You touched my phone!
You're like a f***ing crab, dude. It ain't your phone, bro. Your phone's right here.
Oh.
Even thinking back to like the, you know, rest in peace, the Leafy content cop, where iDubbbz is like interacting with people on the beach, and then he had like that game that they put like the chin on Leafy or whatever. Including outside people was something that like pushed these to the next level, because people could see like that you just didn't care. You were very based, if you will. So that kind of shifted the avenue of like prank invasions content and other people's content, but they would often throw the term, especially Joey Salads. Joey Salads got that social experiment word everywhere. That was how they would reason with it, which is really interesting. So prank invasion was really bad, and also was a prime target for H3 Productions, because he would essentially hire like attractive female actors who were going into the objectifying women category, and then they would just like make out with them on the street.
Let's fucking play, dude.
Pretty good so far. Okay. Oh, no, you're messing up. Come here.
By the end of this week, Chris's face is going to be plastered all over Beverly Hills with a police number, say, wanted man. Do not approach this man. Do not talk to this man. He's going to be excommunicated from Venice Beach, Beverly Hills. I know he's not allowed back at Santa Cruz based on his previous work. Soon, This guy's going to be fucking straight up kicked out the country.
No, it's kind of weird me coming up to you. This is your daughter, right?
This is what I live for. We've got the dad. We've got the cute daughter. Guys, get your dicks out. It's showtime at the Apollo.
No, it's kind of weird me coming up to you. This is your daughter, right? Yeah. Okay.
This is your daughter, right? He's like, yeah.
What am I supposed to say?
And like grope them and pretend that it was a stranger. So he would do like a weird handshake. He's like, if you can't follow my you are, because I don't really want to put his videos in because I feel like I'm gonna get banned. So you would follow his like hand trick. So you'd be like, you know, he'd be hitting one of these, right? So you would do his hand trick, but then he would do something slowly like this, and then he would go like that. And if you couldn't follow this, then you have to make out with him. That's like the premise of like 80% of his videos for the longest time. So Ethan Klein kept coming for him, but then eventually, like, people got sick of his shtick. And Ethan Klein also noticed that prank channels were becoming self-aware, that they needed Ethan Klein to call them cringe to continue their success. This is also as the adpocalypse came forward, as I mentioned before. And when I was researching for this video and I went to like old Lance Stewart videos, old Joey Salads videos, a lot of them were actually age restricted, which was really interesting. So because they were age restricted, I don't think you get ads at all if a video is age restricted, if I remember correctly. I don't really know because it's never really happened to me. But when that happens, that's because there's a certain like level that you've passed the line by far, but you're not quite enough to get banned. So regardless, this is what was happening with a lot of these prank videos. So then Prank Invasion, once he saw that people were getting tired of him just like having fake strangers in the street, he's like, oh, screw it. Family members. he said, no. Family is the hit, is the moment now. So Prank Invasion was like kissing my half sister. So a lot of people allege this was fake. And Prank Invasion tried to make it seem real by having like pictures in the room. But I think it's because a lot of the pictures, they were like the same age they are now. Or now, at the time. People are like, that was just planted. Which, like, I totally believe it was planted. Like, that totally makes sense. He was saying that it was like his half sister. And he like... oh my god, he like made out with her really aggressively. I'm gagging because of the sound, because I can remember the sound. When I script, I use my computer, I use my AirPod Pros. The surround sound in those, like with the the sound. Anyways, and then so people made videos about that, yada yada yada, and then Prank Invasion went further and was like kissing my mom. People dragged that to filth, and then in Sunny V2's video when I was watching, people were alleging that Prank Invasion was actually trying to sell his channel for $150,000 or something. And then in 2019, he essentially tweeted that he's done making content, it was a good ride, and just left the internet. Don't know where... His name is allegedly Chris. I don't know where Chris has gone, Christopher Monroe. The kind of idea of where Chris Monroe specifically went, I got from Internet AJ's video, which I'll also link down in the description. And if I ever forget to link something, drag me. Because, guys, editing takes a long time, and sometimes when it's a lot of content in a row, I kind of, like, forget what I've done up to that point, so... Ethan Klein went as far as to prove that it was actresses that were hired for Prank Invasion's video, which was also a big component of the mask slipping, and actually confirmed via interview. And then allegedly, Chris Monroe threatened legal action as a result of this interview to the actress for quote-unquote like exposing his, his shtick and what he was doing. Which is really interesting because it's like they worked off of the benefit of the doubt of other people to grow their fame, which was such an interesting kind of interaction between, because I always thought people knew that pranks were fake, like the ones where they're in the city or whatever, like, and maybe because I grew up watching things like Just for Laughs, Gags or whatever, which were like a little bit more authentic, but even then a lot of the time like kind of structured in a certain way. Again, it's hindsight, but at the same time, I was in my senior year of high school when all of this was going on. So I got internet in late 2017, and one of my first internet memories of like internet lore was I was in a lab with my brother, who's a couple years older than me, and then all of his friends were like, oh my god, guys, did you see that iDubbbz made a content cop on Jake Paul? And then it was Rice Gum. That whole thing, that was like my first week of college. That's kind of what I can recall, but I remember being in high school and like knowing that like the Facebook pranks were fake. And it seems that these were, like, just clips of these YouTube videos. But alas, I'm not judging anybody. But we're going to get into the rhetoric aspect of the prank video. So, I can't lie, though. This is not very deep. Like, prank content is not very deep. It was just, chasing clout for money. You wanted fame as much as possible, and the YouTube revenue was so incredibly high at this time that it was like, go for it for anything you could possibly get your grubby little hands on, and then hopes that you can sustain that for a long time. However, I did find an essay called Genre and Social Action, or Genre as Social Action by Carolyn Miller, and I'm going to read from that for this rhetoric section. And this essentially we're boiling down to the fact that the following quote is kind of an important one. So situations are social constructs that are the result not of perception, but of definition. So that's where we're going to be reading from. So the essay says, situations are social constructs situations are social constructs that are the result, not of perception, but of definition. Because human action is based on and guided by meaning, not by material causes, at the center of action is a process of interpretation. Before we can act, we must interpret an indeterminate material environment. we define or determine a situation. It is possible to arrive at a common determination of material status of affairs that may have possible interpretations because, as Alfred Schultz has argued, our stock of knowledge is based upon types. We can imagine a type to be like a line or demarcation which runs between the determination explicit on the basis hetero-existing, relevant structures, and the unlimited possibilities of the determination of experience. In other words, our stock of knowledge is useful only insofar as it can be brought to bear upon new experience. And the new is made unfamiliar through the recognition of relevant similarities. Those similarities become constituted as a type. A new type formed from typification already on hand when they're not adequate to determine of affairs. It enters a stock of knowledge and its application becomes routine. So that was a lot of words. Now listen, I can explain. Essentially what the essay is saying is that technically material cannot determine the result of a situation. So while people can argue that the result is only money, fame is actually the thing that leads to money, and the social interaction between the influencer and the other people that are watching in the audience that drives a cycle of content is the true determiner. And what was happening was they were dealing with unforeseen territory, and they didn't realize that this growing constant push of the envelope would actually result in their own downfall, because previously outrage content was growing careers. Even think of people like Shane Dawson and their racially charged content that garnered them an audience. So with this unforeseen territory, in combination with these high levels of monetization, these further growing audiences, and the legitimization of the platform, people actually were able to try to use earlier YouTube as a way to see where their results would go. But they were going into a new situation where they were harming other people. They were using racially charged stereotypes and different things on supposedly the public domain and the public audience, and just people in the street and things like that. So with this content, they tried to use the past to predict the future, and were unable to do so because they didn't realize how different their situation actually was, and as a result actually worsened things for other creators, or contributed to the worsening for other creators. So that was kind of how pranking worked, was this interaction between the social experiment and the creator. And with that, we're going to wrap up the prank section of the video. And we're going to get into part 3, which is YouTuber diss tracks. So this is looked at as like a pretty wholesome time in YouTube, and a time that a lot of people I find romanticize and kind of look back upon positively in like a funny kind of cringy way, right? People know that they weren't good, but they kind of think it was funny, because also like not only do people recall just like the times where YouTube drama was like, I have more Ferraris than you, or something along those lines, they kind of think back to the content creators that were reacting to this content and the wholesome videos that they were making, or the people that they deemed to be wholesome at the time. So a huge example of this I find is like the Cody Code That's Cringe videos about Jake Paul. Those have tens of millions of views, and were like this super regarded content, and like for some of Cody Co's most famous content. So if people are thinking diss tracks, are also thinking this era. They're kind of relating to this era at the same time. Or the H3H3 Productions video about Jake Paul, or the PewDiePie video simply titled Jake Paul. Diss tracks were used in popular music for a long time, with allegedly the first one being called You Keep Her by Joe Tex, which was made in 1962. YouTubers picked this up during what I'm going to refer to as like the Clout era, because that's also when the term like clout became famous, and then you had like the Clout House with FaZe Banks and stuff like that. Era in, I would say, 2016, 2017 as a whole, as Vine shut down, people were discovering like the vast realm of audiences on YouTube and the high level of monetization, and we're just flippantly spending money flexing. And that's like the only way I can really explain it. So we're thinking like, Rice Gum and Jake Paul, FaZe Banks, like Musical.ly Stars 2 kind of coming up, and kids, then they'll have kids, Tana Mojo 2, Hugh Hefner, and all that kind of stuff. You're like the Hugh Hefner music video, and just throwing money. That was kind of like what the diss tracks were associated with, that kind of like clout era. One of the most infamous diss track makers was Rice Gum. As I mentioned before, I just made a video on Rice Gum if you want to watch that, which is like the Where Are They Now Rice Gum. I did not know this either. This is a lot of, I'm learning things. He made a diss track about Gabby Hanna called I Didn't Hit Her.
I just called my lawyer up and he told me he go get us some. I thought she was high up, but the thing she doing is really low. So when you look up, I looked up
old YouTuber diss tracks, or it's 2016 YouTube diss tracks, just like in Google to see if there's any articles or whatever. And there was one that was like ranking them, and they were all like rice gum ones, with this one being really high up, and this one's very disgusting. A lot of them are, though, in reality. Essentially what had happened was, for those of you who don't know, Gabby Hanna met up with Rice Gum, challenged him to a rap battle, and then said, oh, you're like gonna chicken out and you're not gonna do it. And then said that it was because he didn't have his ghostwriter with him. Kind of funny, not gonna lie, but regardless. So that's what had happened with that. Then Rice Gum like smacked Gabby Hanna's phone out of her hand and shattered it. And allegedly Gabby Hanna said that he had hit her too. And then this diss track was the response for some reason. And then you also have one about Bad Baby called Bitcoin. And then you have Frick the Police.
Arrested, but I'm flexing. Can you get these sheep out my mentions? How can I be mad, bitch? I sleep in a mansion.
Regarding, that was about, IWTV after the Content Cop. And the most popular being It's Everyday Sis, which is still the first YouTube video when you click on his channel. I guess maybe if you're unsubscribed, I don't know what it's like for people who are subscribed, because I'm not subscribed to Rice Gum. Which was with Alyssa Violet, which was about Jake Paul, and it was a response obviously directly to views on these diss tracks. The views of these diss tracks we're getting were unprecedented. Like this, we're talking like 200, anywhere from 50 to 200 million views. And even if they're only 3 minutes, you also had Spotify streams, Apple Music streams, you also had merch sales as a result of these diss tracks. And because they were songs, they could generate revenue over a far longer period of time than something, for example, as a commentary video. Some of them had almost 300 million views. They had like I think It's Everyday Bro had like 263 or 283 million views.
It's Everyday Bro with the Disney Channel flow. 5 mil on YouTube in 6 months. Never done before.
Something like that. And just numbers beyond my little pea brain's comprehension. If I had 200 million views on a video, I would never have to pay for anything. Like, I would have enough money to, like, I could die right there, It's crazy. It's wild. It's a wild. So what's interesting too is with a lot of the popular ones, often like it had decent production value, but then it was the vocal talent that really tanked everything. Jake Paul being the worst of this, I think. Jake Paul's like vocals on everything are just so like nothing can save them. I have learned, because it's just so. Where was your last? No, I can't even do it. Where was y'all at when I was on the email?
And where was y'all at when I was on the email? Trying to stop the press fans from killing themselves.
It's just so. Oh my god, I'm gonna be listening to this back too, just being like, what were you thinking, girl? Anyways, it almost became a contest between who could have like the highest production value and who could have the flashiest music videos. We're talking drone shots, rented out or utilizing their own mansions, probably like, tens of $1,000s of like camera work and different production, different guests that would come into the songs, they would come into each other's songs. And that became kind of, I would argue, the difference. Like, people were essentially using these as like response videos instead of something like a commentary video. What's really interesting about diss tracks too is that they have replay value. So if you look at one of my videos, let's say the part 1 of this video, it has like 30,000 views, I think. Ish, around the time that I'm recording this. Y'all are only going to watch that once. I think someone who is very dedicated might watch it 3 times. Max. I have listened in editing a lot of these videos and talking about this stuff. It's Everyday Sis like at least 10 times. So that's already triple playback as to what a normal video would get. Obviously, I can run more ads and generate more ad revenue per play, but regardless, you'll have people listen to this like every day. Y'all, I am paying every One Direction member's mortgages with how many times I stream those songs, okay? So I've listened to like Midnight Memories easily 200 times. You have these like very high playback values where you could respond in the way of a commentary video, but then have continuous revenue generation. That is something I've never heard anybody talk about with the diss tracks, but I think that's a very key factor, because it's like playback value is something that is at a fault of the YouTube system, essentially, is that you kind of need to be able to. That's also why like it's really bad when your video gets demonetized right at the beginning, because you're gonna miss a huge chunk of viewership that we're not gonna watch it again once it's monetized. So the biggest phenomenon of these diss tracks, as far as like the commentary space goes, is It's Everyday Bro, for sure. That created this explosion, became a huge meme that essentially just took over like the end half of 2017 with very iconic commentary videos, as I mentioned, garnering tens of millions of views. We're talking the Cody Co That's Cringe, Mr. Beast watching It's Everyday Bro for 10 hours. That has like 25 million views. It's 10 hours. When I hear about people like will make jokes about old Mr. Beast, the Power Cynical will do this a lot. I'll make jokes about old Mr. Beast, and then it brings up like this video. I didn't know this was real. I thought it was a joke. So that was something that helped launch Mr. Beast's career. PewDiePie's video titled just Jake Paul. And there was tons of other ones that people still talk about, and Jake Paul, and even the IDOPS Content Cop went off of like the Jake Paul, making fun of Jake Paul clout to dunk on Rice Gum. So it even had like outside capacities, capabilities. It went beyond what we could have imagined. Then there was the era or the aspect of like the ghostwriters. And as I mentioned before, them having no vocal talent. So people would make like cringy YouTube music or like parodies of these different things and generate this whole other subset, because before this time, people didn't really have, before this and SoundCloud, people did not really have the money or capacity to self-fund music, especially self-fund shitty music. Some people would be able to maybe get studio time once in a while or something, but then there was never really any promises with that. And then people were able to kind of move forward with this new content that they were making with these like, with no vocal, like they don't have to do the classes, they don't have to like put in the work to be an artist, but could stream at an artist's capacity. And then with that, you had this whole other subset of commentary that generated from that being like, you are just making artists feel worse because you're just money and clout off of like mocking them essentially. And even then they would there was songs about plugging merch. Does nobody remember the like, buy that merch? Like Jake Paul's song. Logan Paul had, or was it Logan Paul? I know they both did one. I just can't remember like which one. I think the Jake Paul was the buy that merch song. But so there was these tons of these like songs and stuff being made in response to, there's even a Jake Paul one that's a response to commentary channel. So instead of making a constructed video, something like this, he just made a like trash diss track. They would get millions of streams and continue to generate revenue off of his like child audience, and then he would even plug merch in the songs. It was just this like this phenomenon unlike anything anyone's ever seen. I think the songs were seemingly something that wouldn't age well, which they have not, but it did kind of propel YouTube music as a whole and has allowed some people that are actually not bad to like move forward and be able to utilize YouTube as a platform for their music. So we're going to go to the rhetoric aspect, and we're going to do the reading from the Essential Guide to Rhetoric, which I will also tag in the description if you want that. Because a lot of people ask me, like, if I wanted a start to rhetoric book, like an introduction, like to if they've never dipped their toes in. A friend of mine bought Aristotle's Rhetoric, and I was like, bestie, that is not, that is a difficult place to start. I would recommend something like this, like a rhetoric manual. So this is the Essential Guide to Rhetoric. This is a little bit expensive for how short it is. I'm sure there's other places to get it, but I just don't exactly know where that would be because I bought this one on Amazon. But so we're talking about contrived drama. We're going to be talking about Kenneth Burke again. It's Burke and Weaver. I'm just like running my mouth all the time about, but we're talking about humans as the inventor of the negative. So this says language or symbol systems are more than one-to-one representations between words and things. Symbols create more possibilities than that. In particular, they create the possibility of things that are not, things that don't or can't exist. This can range from trivial things like unicorns or comic book heroes to important things like utopian societies that groups may be working toward that haven't achieved. Burke pointed out that people can talk about or symbolize things they have never done. That is an important part of social regulations consists of prohibitions on that behavior, or learning not to do things. He called this the idea of thou shalt not, and is not only possible through medium of language to imagine an action and then decide or tell others what not to do. Thus, the idea of the good and evil is made possible by language. It is created through human and social interaction. So what I want to do with that is how a lot of these songs are based off of fake contrived drama between each other. That was a lot of like, don't chase my clout, don't chase my money, and was creating this idea of like the lone wolf or maverick mentality in the case of Logan Paul, and was created as responses to things, like I said, commentary channels. So they were trying to, and also when they're creating a fictional reality, they're creating a fictional reality of them being musicians, and them trying to be seen as legitimate musicians a lot of the time, or at least they pretended that they would. So that is what they've created through the rhetoric of these diss tracks and this environment that they've not only manifested but produced through these songs and through the cycle of commentary, and then responding to commentary through just more of these songs, which also just shows like a shamelessness that a lot of people may have not imagined. So with that, we're going to end part 3, the diss track section. Now we get into our final part of the video, which is the reaction content. I took a bit of a different approach to this because a lot of people suggested me SSS Sniper Wolf. I checked and her reaction content didn't actually start until like late 2018. So we have a little bit of a different approach here. So we're going to start with kind of discussing what the time was like on YouTube and the way that copyright system worked and different things like that. But there's also 2 subgenres of this that I'm going to be discussing today. So there's the what's called like lazy reaction. We're talking like Jinx, where they just sit in silence for the most part, laugh a couple times, and then magically have a video. Or you have the X reacts to Y, which we're talking about like the fine bros content. There's like, you know, elders react to pop culture content, or kids react to Slenderman Gangnam Style, something like that. So that's like what the second subgenre we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the fine bros too, and just some issues with them. Starting with the lazy commentary, we're going to cheat a tiny bit, and we're going to talk about the iDubbbz Jinx Reload content cop, which came out in December 13th, 2015. Now, I know this is cheating. However, that content had a substantial kind of lasting effect that went through to 2016 anyways, and Jinx continued to upload through 2016. Because of that, I thought I could include it, and I can also do what I want. This is my channel. You have one of the biggest call-outs of this lack of creative content. So while Ethan Klein was the call-out for the, you know, prank content, you have Ian or iDubbbz TV being the call-out for the lazy reaction content. Because this content that Jinx Reload made was essentially borderline re-uploading other people's content. Like a majority of the video was silence.
You picking dick, shorty? Lazy as hell. What the fuck? How did that even happen? How did he do that?
I woke up like this.
Oh, I remember this. That's what happens when she says she ain't getting no sloppy top. Oh, kill him.
It was very lazy and clout chasey, and it would just like he would plug merch at the very beginning of the videos, and he wouldn't really do much, and he would upload multiple times a day. His channel still has, Jinx Reload still has over 1 million subscribers, but has videos that struggle to even get over 1,000 views today, which is so wild to me. That's the most dead subscriber base I've literally ever seen. To those like ratios. Like he has a couple videos when I was looking that have like 768 views. Like I can put out almost anything, maybe, probably, and I get at least 1,000 views in the active state of my channel's in right now, and I don't have 10,000 subscribers yet. So it's very interesting to me how like that's the biggest like X person fell off I think that I've ever seen. However, Jinx was dormant for a really long time, so that would be another kind of aspect of that whole thing. So this was, like I said, was a popular style of content for commentary to attack and talk about. And when there was the Australian guy, whose name has slipped my mind, who called out the Twitch reaction channels, a lot of people were saying, was this just 2016 all over again? Which was referring to things like the iDubbbz content cop calling out Jinx. Pyrocynical also made a couple of commentary videos about the reaction content, which he found like a super obscure one, which is one of the clips I have in the merging sequence and as well as the introduction. So iDubbbz and Pyrocynical and other commentators alike decided what the line was going to be for what's too lazy as far as reaction content goes. And in my 2016 part 1, when I did discuss commentary in the sections of like X person against Keemstar and discussing different creators and introducing them, I talked about the phenomenon of like, I am holier than thou, or they are worse than me, because when I go back and watch these videos, there's lots of like, you know, slurs and lots of derogatory terms and a lot of issues with how they're describing things or the words, their terminology that they're using, but they are pointing out essentially slightly derogatory, or not slightly, very derogatory explanations and values to the content. I think similar content is still popular and still exists. I mentioned this when I was introducing the reaction style content. Amberlynn Reid, Chantel Marie, like Girlverse, which I have multiple videos on. I have the rhetoric of Amberlynn Reid, and I have Canadian Menace's part 1, Foodie Beauty, where I do talk about how they are and how they have a community of reaction channels that will watch their streams or their videos but they tend to have a little bit more of a creative approach. I think that was due to the fact that the content made in 2015, 2016, talking about reaction channels was very direct with needing to put in some effort to the content. But even then, with the Gorlverse, Gorl, you have some of the creators actually taking advantage of the copyright system, which was another problem that started to emerge in the late 2010s with the YouTube platform. This was like the most problematic with like music and striking any amount of music in videos. Like if you look at my clips of diss tracks, I can't have them be more than like 3 seconds long or I'll get claimed for the entire video. So reaction content was kind of the precipice of this whole thing because people were starting to like strike and this came over time, especially, and then music began getting claimed. The copyright system became an issue as well. And people like Amberlynn Reid and Chantal Marie have allegedly striked channels to take advantage of that copyright system as well. So after a lot of these people were incessantly called out for being lazy, a couple still survived. For example, Reaction Time. They have like a Snapchat show, if I remember correctly, which is how I actually figured out who he was.
All right, last words before surgery. What do you guys say to your wisdom teeth? All right, love you, man.
Dude, getting your wisdom teeth pulled out is the worst thing in the world. Especially after inflammation.
I'm waiting for grace.
And that content is incredibly lazy. You have a couple TikTokers nowadays, so this became popular on TikTok as well, that will just kind of like read and react to memes. And you'll be like, oh, this is like so funny, and like point at stuff. So that's kind of like the modern style, that like lazy reaction content, but it is far less popular than it was at this time. And people will call the content lazy and not really do much with it. There needs to be a persona tied to the reaction now. That is what I've noticed. There's a lot more ethos in regards to reaction content. They want someone who has a unique approach or a unique style of conversation or a different twist on things to react to the content. So I've done a live stream reacting to Amberlynn Reid and Chantel and stuff like that. People like to watch my live stream on it, which even then doesn't have a lot of views as reaction content goes. But because I can talk about rhetoric, I can talk about my specialties, I can talk about with Chantel that I grew up in the area that she lives in, different things like that. But I don't just sit there in silence and once in a while go, or go, oh my God, I want to see that. Wow. Like the reaction time still does to this day. But the popularity for this has definitely fallen off, and the ability to monetize it has also shifted as well. We're also going to get now into the second section of this whole thing, which is the Fine Brothers, or the Fine Bros. Now, they have a slew of controversies tied to them. I believe Gamer from Mars made one. There's tons of videos on Fine Bros controversies. I actually read mostly articles when I was looking into this section, because the Canadian Broadcasting Company, like the government-funded one, made articles about the Fine Bros, and like, I was like, why where are my tax dollars going? So these videos have been going on for almost 10 years. Some of the more popular ones and older ones, you see like this is 9 years ago. So we're getting towards the 10-year mark of the popularization of this content, specifically for the Fine Brothers. So I said, as I mentioned before, it takes the format of X reacts to Y, which in the case of Fine Brothers was, I have a list of different titles that I thought were particularly silly or bizarre, which was Kids React to Harlem Shake, Teens React to Nicki Minaj's Anaconda, and Parents so I often script these videos on Discord calls with friends of mine and stuff like that, because I just like to hear something while I'm doing stuff. And I started laughing like crazy, and I started just reading the titles. And then when I got to Parents React to XXX Tentacion or Temptation or whatever, I just like, that's just so cringe. I don't know what else to say. It's just like, what, guys, please, y'all searching for anything. So the videos are typically presented as unscripted reactions. However, there's recently come across my For You page, like interviews with old, like people that used to work with the Fine Brothers on the React videos, such as like the people from Teens React or Middle Schoolers React. And they said that allegedly, because I don't know if I can find the clip, this is like deep into my TikTok algorithm at this point, I forgot to save it. They said that the questions allegedly were very heavily guided, and if you didn't fit your reaction to a certain direction they wanted the video to go into, you were not included in the episode at all, or it was just deleted entirely. The content was very family friendly looking, very like synonymous of that peak of BuzzFeed aesthetic. And I'll put like a BuzzFeed video and one of the Fine Bros Reacts videos like stacked, so you can kind of see like this aesthetic that I'm talking about. But there's a very similar like clean, bright colors, you know, popular characters and pop culture topics, and very generic, and feels very like systematic, for lack of a better description, very devoid of, you know, fun, quirky YouTuber energy. So several controversies actually came from the Fine Brothers and came from their reactions and different things. One of them was as recent as June of 2020, which was that they were alleging sexism and racism in the workplace of the people that were working for the Fine Brothers company. An insider went as far as to publish a report on this in January of 2021, which is really interesting because I never heard this reported on at all, which is really surprising because the Fine Brothers are not free of controversy. I feel like the Fine Brothers mask slipped around the similar time as not only the copyright thing we're going to talk about after, but at the same time as like the slip of working for BuzzFeed. So when you had a lot of those like super popular videos like Why I Left BuzzFeed, Sophia Nygaard's being one of the most popular ones, this kind of led to a lot of people seeing through the Fine Brothers and seeing through what they were working with and how they were doing things. And that had the mask slip and the popularity decrease, yet they still upload content on a very regular basis in the exact same format they've been doing for 10 years at this point. So getting into the copyright stuff, you had a controversy that started in late 2015. The Fine Bros filed for copyright of the term react, which is a verb, right? The word react, reacting, reactive. No, it's a verb. Okay. So you have like the word react. They're trying to copyright claim over everybody else's videos like a simple word, react. So they were going to file a trademark for the term react, where essentially if you wanted to put the word react into a video, you had to license the video through something that they call React World. So this was like, if you wanted to, essentially you had to buy the trademark or pay them for the trademark of React to be able to use it in a title. This is something similar to where people will license music for videos. I know like this is such an obscure example, but there's a streamer called Saie who plays Guitar Hero videos. He did one with Sicko Mode, which is one of them, if not his most popular video on YouTube. He bought the trademark to be able to use it so he wouldn't get claimed on the video. But often paying for the trademark is more expensive than the money that the video would even make. But there's like, you know, obviously cost versus risk analysis that can be done with that. But that's besides the point. So essentially you would have to do that to be able to use the word react, like the generic, you know, the verb, like the word in English, which obviously people were upset with for good reason, because react can be a slew of different things. You can have the word react in a way that does not relate at all to the style of content that's similar to theirs. You know, you can have like my reaction to getting a DM from X famous person, my reaction to Shane Dawson's new documentary, where you just talk about, you do not react to it in like the form of content where you have the video clip or anything like that. You're just talking about how you felt about it. React can be compared to opinion. React can relate to the type of content that they're talking about. React can be just an emotional response, a depicted emotional response. It can be a plethora of different things. And because of that, people were super upset, and they actually lost 300,000 subscribers. Now, they still have 20 million subs, but at this time, you have to remember this is prior to Dramageddon 1, 2, or 3 of the beauty community. Huge subscriber losses were few and far in between at this time. So for a huge channel that's like well respected in the platform, to lose subscribers like that was something that people were not used to. And like I said, mainstream news had reported on, in this case, the government funded CBC News network. And then if you were not to license the term react, the Fine Brothers could copyright claim the whole video in the same way that, say, Sony Records would copyright claim if I put a One Direction song in here. So, well, actually, that would be Psycho Records that would claim that, but you know what I mean. Someone would be able to claim the entire video just for using the word react in the title or following the format that they used, which their format is not creative enough that it should be able to be trademarked, in my opinion. Just being able to watch something and have a bunch of different people watch something is not something that I feel like is unique enough to have a copyright over. So they continue to receive tons of backlash, and I think this copyright scandal actually just damaged their reputation as far as being respectable on the platform for years to come. I believe that iDubbbz made a content cop on them as well, or reaction content as a whole, and this is another thing to have that call out from the commentary community once again, just kind of puts the nail in the coffin. At this time, commentary has such a powerful pull that if you got called out in any capacity from commentary, that could be the end of your reputation. Whether you can keep pushing and uploading and maybe still have your kind of more niche audience, the people who were aware of you but didn't really watch you will lose respect for you. Now, if we get into the rhetoric section of this is particularly interesting. This is going to revolve For the reaction content, we're going to revolve the rhetoric section around the attempted trademark of the word react, because I think that that's a really important thing to be looking at here. Essentially, the word react has far too many meanings to be able to tie it down to something specific. And because you can't tie the word down to something specific, they're essentially, the Fine Brothers, I mean, in this case, are taking advantage of what's called amphibole, which is kind of like the multiple meanings of words and being able to be a little bit more kind of blissfully ignorant. And this also allowed them to essentially be able to claim content that has no similarity to their own. And because the content has no similarity to their own, and they could claim it, they could take advantage of this kind of open air and non-specificity of the claim that they're making on the content. Now, this is going to be from the book Elements of Rhetoric. Fallacies of understanding, amphibole, and equivocation. An amphibole is when an entire phrase has more than one plausible meaning. How would you feel about reading this, for instance? The manager reserves the right to exclude any man or woman they consider proper. You're not sure whether to open or close the top button of your shirt. Being hustled out of your favorite restaurant is bad. The consequences of vague language in politics can be even worse. Do you remember the last round of election speeches you heard? Many politicians have been serving up rather thin broth for a few election cycles already. When politicians and journalists preach about their desire to bring hope, to defend rights, to protect freedom, and ensure equality, do you know what any of these things actually mean? Do you think they know what they are talking about? To equivocate is to conceal that you have used the same word in one sense and then in another. So in the case of react, right, they're using it in the sense of their format, right? The sitting in front of the video, typically having a bunch of different people in a specific group or subset that brings them all together to react and view content. They, however, will be able to trademark the term, so when content is not like that, they could still claim that it is their own. Words without definitions are like balloons without air. You can twirl them into any shape. It is instructive to recall that the same moment the GUGB was jailing priests and liquidating dissidents, Stalin's 1936 Constitution of the Soviet Union defended both freedom and conscience in religion and freedom of speech in the press. For the rhetorician, as for the logician, the first rule of clear speaking is that you define your terms unless you have reason not to. So in the case of the Fine Brothers, they do have reason to not define their terms, because when they're not defining their terms, that spans the ability of content that they are able to take advantage of and claim as their own. I talked about this in my Comeback of CNMA video, where I said that the way that the man that was making the forensic video had defined the terms of why Jack Wright's the TikTok with Jack Wright in it was not good evidence. He said the video is edited, the video is not original, the no context and shared or something like that. The editing and not original are not defined, and every video online is edited essentially like I said. I mentioned that in the video. If you don't see me taking the camera back and doing all that stuff, that means it's edited to at least some extent. Forensic scientists wanted to be able to pull as many different variables as possible to make it seem like he had more volume to his claims. So in order to do that, he did not define the claims properly. This is the same way with the Fine Bros. If you want the biggest span, you want to take advantage of different people's perceptions, and you want to be able to take advantage of the different ways that people see things, because react can mean one thing to somebody else than it means to me, for example, and because of that, they would have been able to claim more content. That is where we're going to wrap up the parts of this video, and we are going to conclude. So this one's a little bit shorter than the last one, which I love that for me. So in conclusion, this was thankfully lighter than the last one as far as content length and execution. If I do another part, I want to try to only do one. So please comment down below anything I missed, anything I need to correct, anything that you want included. And if someone wants me to talk about how to basic, can you tell me what you'd classify his content as? Because that's the thing I can't figure out where I would put him. So, because I know there was like a whole subgenre of like trying to figure out who How To Basic is apparently, and then everyone's like, he's Vsauce Michael. I don't know what that means. Thank you again for Rose Forever New York for partnering for this video. These beautiful roses. My code will be linked down below along with any other affiliate links that I have. Use code Mika20 for 20% off. And I want to thank you again. And thank you for getting this far and for the immense support I've received on part 1 and other videos. I love making content for you guys, and I'm going to keep going with it. This will be one of the last videos you see with this background, but I have another huge project in the works that I'm super excited about. And once I get it rolling, I will be able to like slightly announce what I'm doing. For now, because nothing's set in stone yet, I don't want to. Just because if it doesn't work out, I'm going to be really sad. You know, in the words of Dixie D'Amelio, right? I was really, 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 really sad. So you guys have a great night, great day, great whatever time it is, wherever you are. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all of you immensely. Like, comment, subscribe, Patreon, Amazon, everything, blah, blah, blah. Link down below. And you guys have a good one. Bye. Okay, okay. Is it? So cute. Let me see him. I don't want to be ripping rapper. Stop it. Oh. I'm sorry.